Hey everyone, welcome to our 2025 NAIC Cube preview. We're making this leading up to the huge Cube event that we're going to do with our friends at the North American International Championships this year in New Orleans. I'm Zander. I built this cube starting in 2020, and I've got joining with me.
Hello, I'm Butter. Nice to meet y'all. I also built the cube not too long ago. I say not too long ago. I don't remember exactly when I built it, but it's been probably like 2 years. 2 years-ish.
Yeah, you were definitely the first other person that built it. And since
this is true. Yes.
Now there's about 6 of us that have it, and I'm trying to convince some more people towards it. But this video is not going to be just about our cube. You're going to get a little bit of cube knowledge in general, and then we're going to talk about our cube leading up to the event that we're doing. So, what is a cube? What if that's a term you've never heard of before? I'm glad you asked. A cube is a curated, draftable set of cards which players draft from the set in packs and build decks from their selections. I feel like I made a wonderful definition here. But essentially, someone, the cube maker, in this case that's us, pick cards that we think work well together, and then from there, similar to like a drafting deck building game, you make a deck of the cards that you pick from those packs. What does that look like for Pokemon Cube? You can pretty much skip these little things unless you want some very specific details. We're just going over the bolded stuff. Butter, what's it mean that this is a mutant cube?
The mutant means as long as it shares the type, it can evolve into whatever. So, for example, Charmander can evolve into Ninetales, and Ninetales can evolve into Cineroar. As long as they're fire type, you can evolve them just like any other basic stage 1 to stage 2.
Yep, easy enough. So that makes that a lot of cards that have really unique effects that are pretty bad on their own, much better whenever you don't have to worry about what their terrible basics do. Next, anything that looks like an ability is an ability. Any card that references one references all the above. No rule box rules, so anything that is a rule box, you can just pretend it doesn't exist. EXs are worth a single prize card, not 2, and then Shining, Radiance, and most importantly, A-Specs their limitations do not exist. And then, shout out to Eliza, base set trainers are functionally items. We're going to skip the rest of that because it'll just make me angry. So, we've done a lot of work on the back end that you don't need to worry about to get to this point, but our cube has seeded packs. So, Butter, tell me about our pack seeding.
Yes. So our seeded packs, we specifically do, it's a total of 16 cards. You've got 5 basics and 5 evolutions, and then the other 6 cards are an assortment of all the different versions of trainers and special energies, of course. So, with that said, the 5 basics, they're always going to be 5 different types. We always make sure to seed it that way. Same with the evolutions, they're all going to be 5 different types. So you're going to see a variety of types whenever you're drafting the cube itself. And that also, with the 6 assorted trainers and such, you're going to see supporters, items, tools, stadiums, and special energies as well, and A-Specs.
Yeah, our goal for that is that cubing takes a really long time. If you're doing this at a regional, it's probably 3 to 4 hours of your day. And we just want to make sure that you at least get the right sets of cards in front of you, that you could build a good deck with the right selections. We can't handhold you through every pick, but we can at least steer a little bit of what's in front of you. Most importantly, we get asked this every draft. You do not have to pick basic energy cards. You can get any amount of basic energy of any type you want after the draft is over. If you want special energy, those are in the packs, but basic energy is just your regular grass, your regular fires, etc. Those you get from us at the end. So now we're going to go through each type. We've picked out some highlight cards, things that we think are some of the better strategies in each type or the more unique things to show off, and then as well as some pros and cons of each type. Butter, why don't you start us off with grass?
Now, to be fair, I can't see the PowerPoint right now. I don't remember what's on the first.
Oh, am I not screen sharing still? One of the things that makes grass really good is that grass is an incredibly synergistic type. You have really great basic attackers that do damage based off the amount of energies you have, and grass has not a lot of ways to put energies into play, but a lot of ways to make those energies matter for double. So there's 2 different paper cards that double your grass energy so that they count as 2 grass. So with something like the Shining Genesect or Zarut, it's really easy to hit great numbers in the cube. Also, grass, Pokemon has loved this effect for the grass type. They have printed lots of grass cards. You can search your deck for a grass Pokemon and put it into play. One of the most powerful things you can do in grass is to use one of these effects, search for a different one of these effects, and then search for another card you want. Then next turn, you have 2 different stage 1s in play that search your deck for 2 different types, or 2 different Pokemon in grass, and from there, you just have all the grass cards you want in the world. So grass pros and cons. Nobody wants the grass cards. They always get what they want. The grass cards synergize only really with the grass deck, and it's very hard to take these cards and put them into any other type because grass cards care about grass cards. Cons, though, you are very weak to disruption. There is 0 good card draw in grass. If it existed, it would be in the cube. Trust me. There's just like not a single good way to. The best grass card draw is that like stage 2 Beautifly that draws until you have 6, and if that's the best you got, it's pretty bad. So sometimes versus disruption or ability lock, you can end up a turn behind because you just don't have ways to recover. Butter, anything else you want to add about grass before we move on?
One thing to note with grass, we have, it's been a while, but we did ban Rillaboom at one point. We don't have Rillaboom in the cube, and there's good reason for that because grass doesn't need it.
Yeah, so
and I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah,
there's about 10 to 15 cards that we have purposefully omitted. The majority of them just say your opponent can't evolve their Pokemon, which is not fun at all. And it's the point of a cube like this is to be able to put really neat stage 1s and stage 2s into play. The Sword and Shield Rillaboom was an incredibly powerful card for grass, and grass is still very good. It did not need it. The Rillaboom did everything that the grass deck wanted in a single pick, and so we decided to cut that, and we replaced it with the Chilling Rain Rillaboom, which is also very good. So we'll go ahead and continue to move on. Fire! Tell us about Recall.
All right, Recall. It's like the most broken attack you could think of. So for anybody that doesn't know, Charizard has Recall, and Incineroar has Secret Attack, which just does the same thing as Recall. But it allows you to use one of your previous evolution's attacks. So you can have any of your fire basics can evolve into any of your stage 1s, of course. And then you can evolve them into Charizard and Incineroar and copy any of the attacks below them for 1 energy, which means energy efficiency, which means you can use something like Radiant Charizard's Combustion Blast for 250 damage for 1 energy. You don't even need the ability. Who cares about the ability? Or you could even use something like Instar Manchan. It's attack, I don't even remember what it's called, but it does 90 to the active and 90 to a bench guy. So you can do that for 1 energy as well. So, needless to say, you get to attack for 1 energy, which is insane. We love that.
Yeah, and that's the big difference versus something like Memory Capsule or Shrine of Memories and Shining Celebi, is that for all those cards, you still need the exact energy cost. For this, you just need the 1 energy, and it lets you copy the attack beneath it. So 1 energy on Secret Attack can turn into discard all of your 1 fire energy and do 180 to one of their bench Pokemon. So a very powerful thing you can do in Fire. Fire also has a secret win condition where you are the best aggressive milling type in the cube. Control is a strategy. You definitely can control win con people out of the game, but Fire can kind of surprise win out of nowhere, featuring the Centiskorch and Moltres that have very similar attacks to discard cards from the top of your opponent's deck, equal to the amount of fire energy you have. Fire also has its own double energy Charizard, as well as Inferno Fandango Emboar, and soon to be released in the Unova set, a second Emboar to rain dance these fire energies into play so that you can mill your opponent out. With like a rescue stretcher or a super rod or just even some way to recover these one time, you can mill out. I've seen 14 cards milled in one turn with a Burn Brightly copying 100-foot flames, and it was just, your opponent, it's really hard to see coming, which is what makes it good as a backup plan. So some pros and cons for Fire. It's just consistent. It's just like, you're like a solid B+, A- at everything. There's really nothing that you do that bad. You're probably not the best at doing anything specifically, but you are getting passing grades. There's 2 different Roast Reveal cards that help you draw cards. Sharing on this Milotic is a way to use an additional supporter during a turn if you want to, based off what's in your opponent's hand. And there's 2 different Gusting cards to pick one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and bring them active. Cons for Fire is that while your stage 1s are very good at getting you consistently set up, you are very offensively reliant on your stage 2s. So sometimes it can feel like you're losing the race because you spent a turn evolving into your consistency stage 1s, which were obviously good, but then to get into your stage 2s and start taking prizes, you may need your opponent to feel like they have to like miss a turn or like whiff on something so that you can get that turn back and win the game. Still a very good type though. Nothing wrong with Fire. If you're a newer drafter, Fire is a great place to start. A lot of people enjoy putting big Pokemon in play and doing big damage. Alright, Water. Water really likes to put energies into play. There's a lot of types that do this very well, but Pokemon has spoiled Water, and I haven't even put all of them on the screen. You have the Frostlass that's accelerates an energy into play. You have the Frost Moth that's Rain Dance for your bench. The Swampert and the Quaquaval here are 2 of the best energy acceleration pieces and attackers in the cube, because even if you have a Pokemon with no energy on it, you can use its ability, attach once, and then put a double Colorless, double Turbo Twin energy on it, and go from no energy in play to attacking in one turn. And if you need a swarm of energies in play, Baxcalibur and Blastoise can help you as well. Water also just has a bunch of great stage 1s that help you play the game. It's really hard to brick in Water, and then when you're doing the Rain Dance strategies, Starmie is also an incredibly powerful addition that I cannot believe we took so long to decide that it was good enough for the cube, and Starmie's a problem. It's very good.
Starmie is like half the reason Radiant Greninja isn't in the cube.
That's true. We did have Radiant Greninja in the cube for a little bit, and that was a mistake. Moving right along. Water pros and cons. Water has some of the best attacking basics in the cube, especially with regards to sniping your opponent's bench. We talked about how powerful Recall was to be able to do that for low energy costs. The trade-off of doing that with Water is that you have all the Rain Dance effects, so you can kind of protect your big threat on your bench, and they can't really get rid of your Pokemon that's sniping their bench and your Rain Dancer in the same turn. Especially with Kyogre and Lapras, where those energies go back into your hand, you can just Rain Dance them all into play again. As well as Radiant Blastoise just having huge hit points on a basic and doing 170 damage. 180 versus 170 is a big difference that we'll talk about soon, but 170 still knocks out a lot of relevant Pokemon, and you can possibly even set yourself up with Pump Shot if you're able to get some damage on the bench before you start attacking. Cons of Water. We've built Water to be very good with Rain Dance style effects, which does mean that you're often reliant on 3 or more energy attacks. That's one of the best things about it, though, is that you're really good at Rain Dancing, but sometimes if you get ability locked or if you just don't draw enough energies, you can struggle. So, Butter, anything to add for Water before we move on?
We did forget to highlight, there is a Recall Empoleon in Water.
Yeah, there's one...
Water also has a Recall guy.
Yeah, one singular Recall guy, not as consistent to set up as the 2 that are in Fire, but a very good effect to be able to use, like, Arctivicious attack for 1 energy, you're 2-shotting stuff, and they're not able to 1-shot you with the damage reduction. So, a lot of good stuff going on in Water. Lightning. Lightning is the best type of putting energies into play. Lightning has been
yeah.
spoiled by many very powerful Magnazones and Dynamotor effects, and we may be able to add another one in the next set, given how they translate Electric's attack. Oh, we're not going to the next slide. There's actually still more energy acceleration. My bad. Oh, we're not going to the next slide. There's still more energy acceleration. My bad. So, yeah, Lightning has got a ton of acceleration and ways to put energies into play. Tell me about Shot Clock, though, Butter.
Alright. So, Zander is one of those players that loves to do control decks. So, with that said, the cube also has access to most of the most iconic control variant cards. Mainly, Evo Shock Raichu. That card is the bane of my existence, but it's okay. That's why we have Switch cards. So, there's plenty of ways to loop Raichu in this cube. You have various ways to keep getting Devo Spray back. You've got Bunnelby, the Oranguru, the freaking Ursaluna. That guy's insane. We love that guy. But yeah, so you can Evo Shock a lot. You can Evo Shock infinitely even. So you have plenty of ways to draw through your deck to get low enough for Oranguru to matter as well. So yeah, control good. Control really good. And it's mainly Raichu, usually.
Yeah, right. It's not as powerful as you think, because if you have a stage 1 that you've paralyzed, your opponent can just evolve into a stage 2, and then they get out of the paralysis. So you kind of have to lock a stage 2 active, or just a Pokemon that you don't think your opponent has ways to evolve. And then let's say you even get a lock on the stage 2. If they play a switch and then attack you with a stage 1, they can just evolve to a stage 2 again. So, Shot Clock, in my opinion, is not even the best control strategy in the cube, but it's definitely just one of the most iconic control decks of all time. They're never going to print another card like Raichu, and for good reason. Lightning, pros, and cons. Remember what I just said about being able to hit 170 versus 180? There's a lot of really problematic attackers that we'll get to later on that have 180 hit points, and there's not that many generic damage modifiers that exist, so being able to hit that 180 with your attackers very cleanly makes it so that you don't really have to try to jump through hoops to figure out how you're going to do 180 versus 170. This Pawmot I was originally very unimpressed with it, and I think it's one of the best cards in Lightning now, just being able to power itself up while you attack with something in the front, and then whenever you need to do a huge amount of damage, which is usually only about once or twice per game, it's pretty easy to get that Pawmot ready to go. So, there is the pros for Lightning. Cons for Lightning is that your options to take a turn 2 knockout are pretty rough, and similar to Fire, you sometimes can end up a turn behind. We are working on looking through all the Lightning Stage 1s to see if there's something that we can add to supplement that. Not a lot of options in Lightning. So
yeah, Lightning stage 1s are kind of like, other than like the stuff we already have in, there isn't a lot going for it, really.
Yeah, trust me, everything we've looked through, not Scryfall, Pokemon cards so many times to check and see what it could be added for each type, and Lightning's options to take a turn 2 knockout are pretty minimal, but you do have a great end game versus most decks, so if you're able to get to that end game, you have so much energy acceleration that it can be hard to stop the snowball. Psychic. I'm going to be real. I think Psychic's the best type in the cube, bar none. You'll see that reflected later in a tier list that we made. But Psychic does have some drawbacks. Dusknoir is probably the most impactful card that's been added to the cube this calendar year, allowing for you to end the game a turn sooner, as well as get rid of any part of their draw engine or consistency engine. You can set it up where you can knock out their attacker on the same turn that you knock out what looks like could be their next attacker. Dragapult has also been the bane of many players' existences, because if you flip heads one time, the game's probably over for your opponent because they lost a turn, and it's not like they can switch out of confusion or something. Eventually they're going to have to knock out the Dragapult, and you can just sit there and keep attacking with it for as long as you flip heads. Also, Psychic has some of the best Ultra Beasts in the cube, which were very powerful in Standard and are unsurprisingly powerful here as well. Other things with Psychic is that you pretty much your basics, your stage 1s, and your stage 2s are better than most types in the cube. You have great consistency. Dark Slowbro is one of the most powerful cards in the cube at getting you cards back from the discard pile, most notably getting back Dusknoir so you can do it again. Refinement Curlia and Tinkaton help you draw cards, and Tinkaton also can swing for huge damage in a pinch. And Trump card Slowking makes it so that if you ever get knocked out, you can search your deck for a card, add it to your hand, and keep going. So not really like they can brick you either. Some Psychic pros and cons. Psychic, every card is broken. I know we've said it enough times, but you've got the energy acceleration, you've got huge 1 energy damage. Didn't even put Lost Thunder Giratina on here. That card is a menace as well. Psychic was the most recent type to be nerfed when we cut Shedinja, which is a very repeatable source of a Life Dew style effect. And cons of Psychic, though, is that everybody wants your cards. It's the opposite of the grass problem.
The exact opposite, yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants grass and everybody wants Psychic. There's so many powerful effects in Psychic that it sometimes can be hard to get a cohesive deck if people are cutting your type off. We have tried to make this better for Psychic by adding in better attacking basics that other types don't want. However, some of these cards are just so powerful that they are going to get snatched from under you. If people see Uxie in their pack, they're going to take it. Whether they're playing Psychic or not, they're taking Azov. They're taking Uxie. There's just so many options for great Psychic basics that other types want. So, your basics, if you get the Dream and you get everything, then your deck's going to be super insane. However, some of your cards do just get collateral damaged by other types. Fighting! Tell me about 2 for 120.
So, one of the biggest things newer cube draft players do when they draft our cube is they get to look at our card pool, and after we tell them all the cards are broken, they're like, why are these 2 for 120 attackers in here? And of course, them being newer, them having not drafted it before, they just don't understand. 2 for 120 attackers are the best in the cube because there's a lot of guys that die from 120 damage. I mean, that's just how it is. And being able to turn to attack, of course, can be a really big deal if you went first or even second. So, with that said, Fighting has like 2 or 3 of them, and then of course you have what's in front of us here. You've got the 1 energy attackers as well. You have Donphan and Excadrill, and then of course Wizcash is a 2 for 140, which is just probably the best 2/4 energy attacker in the cube, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, you got efficiency attackers in Fighting. That's like its name of the game is efficiency. Yeah, and the 2 for 120 is really good going first because you just attach to your active. You are incredibly unlikely to get knocked out on turn 1 by your opponent. They're probably using a Call for Family or some kind of setup attack, and then you're able to just start swinging. And if they don't knock you out, if they don't have a retaliating 2 for 120 or some other kind of effect, then you just snowball. We'll talk more about that when we get to the Fighting pros. Other highlight cards in Fighting. Fighting's energy acceleration, not that great. However, when you get the Colossal or the Garganackle, these are 2 of the premier stage 2s in the whole cube that turn Fighting from kind of a slow, like early game offensive deck that can lose steam in the late game into one of the most resilient types in the cube. You have huge hit point Pokemon. This Rhyperior has the single most hit points of any card in the cube, and you cannot boss around it. And it does 180 damage. This Rhyperior is a beast. It's almost too good, but Fighting as a whole is not that great, so it can have a broken card or 2 as a treat. Its Steelix is no slouch either. Fighting has a lot of Pokemon that attack for a colorless energy in their cost, specifically so that you can play a fire energy with Colossal and get that extra energy in play. Don't forget that Colossal accelerates a fire. It's one of the best parts of the card that you get 2 energy. Fighting pros and cons. Here are all the 2 for 120s that I did not put on the first slide because 2 for 120 is so good that Fighting has so many of them. Even Slitherwing as a basic has 2 for 120, and the 90 damage you take to yourself, you don't even care because you took a prize and you're on the board.
So fighting is just the most offensive type in the cube. You're the best type in the cube at going first, and you definitely can just start that knockout race on turn 2 and keep it going. Cons of fighting: you have minimal acceleration outside of the Garganackle and the Colossal that we showed. You have the 2 cards on your left and then a Trapinch, and your onboard draw is pretty much limited to Cosmic Power Claydol, given one of the best draw cards ever printed, but really not a lot of ways to churn through your deck. Fighting is a great type to play another type with, like Colorless, to be able to see more stuff. Any thoughts on fighting before we move on?
Oh yes, Claydol also gets collateraled by everybody else just knowing that that card is like the best draw card ever.
Yeah.
So people will grab that even if they're not playing fighting. And fighting is so low on draw that we're playing an almost $200 blister promo.
Yeah, this Lucario is like a copyright 2013 European only promo. It's a fun story to tell. But it's definitely
a fun story.
It's the party meme, like, they don't know that I'm $200. Like, that's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, that's fighting for you.
All right. Dark. Dark is one of the GOATs, and a lot of the cube is thinking about this 180 HP Tyranitar. Dark has very good, very efficient attackers. There's not a lot of energy acceleration in Dark, but it is not even really an issue because so many of your good attackers attack for low energy. The Malamar that you see on the left was one of the first cards, almost cut from the cube for power level. You look at their hand, discard a Pokemon, which is already good, and you get to pick one of their attacks and use it, so you're often discarding one of the better cards in their hand and taking a knockout. And then Spiritomb and Tyranitar are just threats that the Spiritomb builds itself up over time, so it can take a big knockout at some point during the game, and the Tyranitar, if they don't have a way to one-shot it, you're almost always taking 2 prizes with it. If Route isn't good enough, the second attack will be. Dark also has a bunch of great stage 1s, including 2 different ways to gust your opponent's bench. Umbreon EX has a very powerful corner attack as well, which you can use in a pinch. Clawsnag Weavile is one of the best free retreaters in the whole cube, as well as just getting to pick a card from their hand and get rid of it. And then Liepard helps you through the mid-game just to get you some draw. Dark. Dark's pros is that it does not need energy acceleration. You have the best 1 energy attackers in the whole cube. We put Galarian Moltres on here because if you get the ability as well, it's pretty much a 1 energy attacker. There's also Darkrai Prism, which is not a 1 energy attacker, but it's something with a similar ability, so if you're looking to get 2 or 3 energy on a Pokemon, you can use Darkrai Prism Star to accelerate energies into play. And then cons, this is kind of a weird one, but Butter and I talked about it a lot. The difference between getting the best Dark cards and just the average Dark cards is really high. Like, I think Dark has the highest ceiling of what you can build, but a pretty low floor. And sometimes, if people hate draft your best cards, you could be stuck. There is like a different Dark deck that you can build with the Hydreigon on your screen that rain dances energies, but Dark doesn't really have the best ways to support that. There's no great card draw, there's no great energy acceleration, so it's kind of hard to like be the rain dance deck in the same way that like Lightning or Water could. Any other thoughts about Dark?
These are good.
Yeah, Tyranids are good.
More often than not, when we're adding new cards from new sets, we ask ourselves, can it knock out Tyranitar?
Yeah. But like Tyranitar doesn't feel broken. It just feels like the top
It's not broken.
It's the top of the threshold of very good.
It's the best example of why the cube is high power.
Yeah. Alright, Metal highlight cards. Metal has very recently gotten some gas. In my opinion, it's still one of the lesser types in the cube. However, you just have huge Pokemon that can tank hits. The Steelix is one of the best attackers in the cube, having 180 hit points and then doing 130 for 1 energy, almost certainly taking 2 prizes as soon as it comes into play across a couple turns. Hops Corviknight is a recent addition that I thought was just going to be okay, but 150 damage usually knocks out a stage 1, and then they're not knocking you out with the minus 60 damage reduction, so you're pretty good with like healing and energy moving, max potion, stuff like that. The Caparaja, in a pinch, can take a huge knockout whenever you need to, so Metal's just got huge numbers in the top right corner. As well as Pokemon is spoiledly in love with Bronzong. If a Bronzong comes out, it's not going to be bad. There's like 5 different Bronzongs in the cube. Didn't even picture them all here. And then the recent Metal Maker Matang is just one of the best consistency cards for Metal at getting you energies in play and thinning your deck. Metal pros and cons, that is not what that's supposed to say. That is supposed to say that you are really good with healing and tanking hits. My bad, because I copied the previous slide. Max Potion and Pokemon Center and stuff like AZ or Briny are really good at making it so you can not get knocked out. So even though your late game is pretty like good already, you can just make it so you slam the door shut by healing your best attackers. But you are lacking in one-shot potential. It can be pretty hard for you to take a big knockout whenever you need to. You pretty much just have the Empoleon that's on your screen to be able to do so, but otherwise you're turning the game kind of into a 2-hit knockout war whenever everything else wants to do a 1-hit knockout. Butter, any thoughts on Metal before we move on?
Ooh. No, not really. I think you covered it all.
I think it was just...
Wait! Zander and Butter forgot to record Colorless! Oh my god, if only there was somebody that could help us. Oh, wait a minute. I can help us. Guys, my name's Jay Roberts. I also have the cube built, and I'm going to do Zander's job for him. So, don't let them forgetting Colorless fool you. It's got some of the best Pokemon we've got in the cube. You've seen some of them previously on other slides with Oranguru and Ursaluna for control, but Colorless has options for literally any type of deck. You want some attackers, you got Talonflame, and Ursaluna's pretty good with that bulky bump. You want draw? You got the Dunsparce and Cinccino. You want to pretend that you're playing standard? You can play the old Pidgeot and Fan Rotom, and search it out with Fan Rotom. Some other cards you want to maybe note here is probably Porygon Z's ability to nuke anything off the board probably 50% of the time. You've got Aerodactyl, you've got Talonflame again, you got Slacking with some really good ability lock, and again, Talonflame low-key kind of broken. Some pros and cons here. As its own deck, it's going to be really good at splashing it into other types because of that generic attack cost. However, since it's so splashable, you're going to be competing with everybody else since they can also splash those cards in. So it's going to be a lot to think about, but I think you guys can handle it. Okay, thanks guys, bye, I'm going to go now, bye, 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 bye.
It's on my mind because of I was looking at the next slide. So
Metal's definitely like the worst type though, but it's still cool.
yeah, so Butter and I made a loose tier list. Do not, next time you come draft with us, do not sit here and be like, well, I have to force Psychic and Dark because Zander and Butter said that they're the best types in the cube. That's really not how it works. The best type for you is the type that you're seeing the cards for. Metal, even though we have it as like a C tier type, was 4-0 in Atlanta and won the draft. I wish that Troy took a slightly normal deck picture so that you can see what's in front of you, but he did a great job supporting Metal with a colorless package featuring Hops Dubwool as a gust, Porygon 2 to draw cards, and then had a lot of great consistency from the Metal cards with Matang and Ledian to search for a card. He also had the Archaludon, which we highlighted as one of the better cards, and so you just have a lot of really powerful stuff. Even the worst...
You even had a Pokemon Center in there.
Yeah. Pokemon Center 6.
You even had a heal card.
Yeah. So, even though these types are very, like, approximately listed as, like, S tier or C tier, every type has won the cube by now, and every type will win the cube again. I did not put Control as a strategy on the tier list. Like, it's kind of, like, not really a type because you have so many cards from different types. I would say Control is probably in B tier as well. We've done a lot to make Control worse in the cube, honestly. Like, we've been more cautious about adding in tool removal to get rid of Life Dew and just having more switch outs and ways to get out of the lock of different control decks. So while it's still very fun, it might not be what it used to be. Control was what won the draft last year at the North American International Championships, featuring Hero's Cape alongside Ursaluna, a 200 HP problematic card that they can just loop Max Potion on. Still very powerful. But
that's why we added more tool removal.
yeah. Alright, so we did a lot of talking about Pokemon types. We're not going to talk about that much about the trainers. The general tips for trainers is that everything that you want in a normal deck playing Pokemon, you still want in a cube deck. So obviously you want your ball search, stuff like that. You want your card draw. I put on the screen the things that people usually forget, or they get to the end of their draft and they're building their deck and they're like, oh, I didn't draft a Switch. Like, they definitely still want to be thinking about cards that are good for your strategy. Tool removal and stadium removal being one. Even playing your own stadium is stadium removal, so that's very good as well. Switching cards, not every type has great free retreaters or low retreat costs. I would also throw double colorless and twin energy as switching cards in a pinch because you can use them to retreat for 2. Recovery cards are great. Super Rod, Rescue Stretcher, Night Stretcher, Nightly Garbage Run, all that stuff is very important. I think that a big part of drafting is making sure that you have ways to take enough prize cards. And if you think about Rescue Stretcher and Super Rod, you can reuse your best attackers. So you can almost think of these cards as like ways to take a prize card. And then gusting methods like Lysander and Pokemon Catcher. Cards are played as written, and the Pokemon Catcher in the cube is not a coin flip. Very important to note. So you definitely want to be paying attention to how the cards are worded, because if you see Pokemon Catcher and you think it's a coin flip, you're going to be sad when someone uses it against you and it's not. Butter, anything to add about trainers before we move on?
Draft recovery, draft recovery, draft recovery.
Yeah.
Please draft a recovery card if you see it.
Yeah.
They're the best card, or some of the best trainers in the cube. Being able to loop one of your best attackers that you drafted is like the best thing to do.
Yeah, and another important thing to throw out is that some of these problems can be solved by the Pokemon that are in your deck. So if you have like the Umbreon and the Ariados that we showed off for Dark, you may not need to be as concerned about picking a good a good gusting trainer. That same thing can be said with like Dark Slowbro as a recovery card, Archaludon for a switching card in the metal deck. There's a Rattata that we recently added from Evolutions that discards a tool on their active. So you might not need to sit there and think that you need every single one of these things for trainers, because you might already have something that solves that problem. There's a Tauros that when you put it on your bench, you can discard a stadium and play. So just don't think too hard about, this is not a checklist. I don't want you to think that, oh man, my deck's going to be bad because I don't have a gusting card. I've seen a lot of decks win that have no gusts, but it's still a powerful thing that you might want to have, so don't feel like you can skip it all the time. Okay, value over replacement. This is where I go to my teaching background and teach you a concept that you might not have heard of. So this is maybe a better section for people who have drafted the cube before. If you have not drafted this cube or any cube at all, this might not mean that much to you. But what this concept is effectively saying, it's a sports concept saying how much better is a certain player than a replacement average player. So in front of me, I have 6 cards similar to the 6 trainers that you may see as you open a booster pack. Usually most packs have 2 to 3 supporters, 1 to 2 items, and then some combination of stadiums and special energy and tools. So here you have 2 to 2 in front of you. Some of these cards in the cube pool are definitely more unlike other cards. So here, that would be the Hold On Circle and the Goop Gas Attack. The 2 supporters that are here are, N is just a pretty regular draw supporter card. In the grand scheme, it was obviously very powerful in Standard, but here, it's kind of just a draw supporter. Clavel, the first time that you see a Clavel, you may want to take it. The second time, there's always Bridget, there's Gloria, there's Sonia, there's Professor Oak Setup. There's a lot of cards like that, so you may not need to take it. And even though we did just talk about switching cards and recovery, you might not need to take it in any given pack based off whether you already have it or you're early on in the draft enough that you think you might see one again. The reason why I highlighted Hole on Circle and Goop Gas Attack are because they are two cards that are dissimilar to anything else. Hole on Circle is the only stadium that does this kind of effect. Very good for control decks to be able to block their opponent from attacking. It's a great synergy with Lucamine and the Cosmic Eclipse Munchlax. And then Goop Gas Attack is just item Hexmaniac. You can use all your abilities on your turn, end your turn with an item version of Hexmaniac, and then block all of your opponent's abilities on their turn. So that's why I bring this up, because there's a concept also in Cube called wheeling, which is just the first time you see a pack, you're probably going to see that same pack again with a bunch of cards taken out of it. Certain cards are more likely to wheel than other cards, and your value over replacement cards are almost certainly not going to be those. So if you've played the Cube before, or if you're just interested in looking at the Cube Koga for the cards that are in the Cube, that'll be in the description, and you can look through and see kind of the more unique effects there. Building a Council Cube deck, we saved this for the end because we wanted you to be able to kind of see a little bit about what each type is doing. So after the draft, you will have 66 cards to build a 50-card deck. So you're going to be cutting about a third of what you pick. Most of the time, at the end of each pack, you're going to kind of be getting some junk that you don't really need, just cards for a type that nobody's drafting that time, or like a supporter that's kind of mediocre. So your cuts at the beginning should be pretty easy. Butter, do you have any deck building tips outside of what I've got in front of you? I'm not just going to sit here and read the screen.
Yes. So, for the most part, I'd say with building a deck in the Cube, you're gonna separate everything by the different cards. Of course, most people do that, but some people I see they're just like, oh, this card's good, I'll put that in my, yes, I want to play this pile. What I like to do, at least, separate all my Pokemon by their types, supporters, items / tools, stadiums, and special energy. And then I go from there. I'm like, alright, I need to have draw supporters, I need to have these items because they're good, like recovery or Pokemon catcher. You want to make sure you got a little bit of everything you want, right? And then, of course, not all the Pokemon you're gonna use, but some of them are better than others, some of them are worse. So, with that said, you're gonna want to just take all your cards you think you want to play in your deck, count it up, and be like, alright, now I can make my cuts. I need to have this amount of energy. And the energies kind of depends on like what your type's doing. Like if you're a Rain Dance deck, you want to make sure you have a good amount so you're able to find them. But if you're a more efficient deck with energies for your attacks, you don't need as many. So just that's how I like to do deck building when I draft the Cube. So
when would you say during the draft, on average, that you are like, I'm playing this type? How far in do you usually feel like you've got that answered?
I feel like by the end of Pack 2, midway through Pack 3 is when I know I have a type. If you're not solid on a type by Pack 3, then you're not drafting as good as I'd say you should be. But some people just like have like their hands in 2 different types, and then by Pack 4 they're like, oh, okay, I got enough of one of them, I'll do that. So sometimes it can happen. Sometimes you can get your type very late, or finally figure out your type very late. But I would suggest getting your type by Pack 3 for sure.
Yeah, and I know that we talked about the types of the Cube as if you only were ever going to play one type. More often than not, you are better running 2 types, in my opinion. Grass sometimes is the one type that kind of is the exception to this rule because all of their cards are super synergistic. But usually you want to support a type that doesn't have that much card draw with a type that does have card draw. And one thing I didn't say at the beginning is that there's more colorless in the Cube than any other type. So there's more colorless cards available for players to run like a 2-2 line of. Usually something like that ends up having way more benefit than you realize because it's just assisting your consistency that much.
We've essentially designed the Cube to be able to just be like, alright, I've built my cool deck. Now I can throw in my 2-tuba barrel line and draw cards, essentially.
Yeah. Just going to blitz through what's on the screen. One thing that people sometimes don't consider is that even though you're going to be using a 50-card deck, the energy cost of your Pokemon does not change, so you often still need the same amount of energy that you would normally run. I put 9 to 12 as like a loose number. It depends on if you have like Super Rods or Energy Searches or stuff like Starmie or Dragon Magneton or Professor's Letter, Superior Energy Retrieval. There's like a lot of... If you get some cards that help you with your energy problem, you can probably run a little bit less. Also consider Pokemon that you don't want to evolve. So usually you end up playing like one less stage 1 than the amount of basics that you're playing, or 2 less stage 2s than the amount of stage 1s you're playing. But in a type like Grass, where you have a lot of really good attacking basics, you don't want to put your Shining Genesect into play and then have to evolve it, because you probably want to be using it for attacking. So you might end up running more basics than you think are necessary, because you might want to act as if your Shining Genesect or your Zarude can't evolve. That's just an example. And then as you're building your deck, you probably want to consider if you're going first or second. Going first means that if you take a knockout every turn, starting from when you can attack, that you guaranteed win, obviously, because you're taking that knockout. So if you're in a deck that's more offensive, like fighting, you may want to try to build your deck to where you can go first and get that lead. But the turn 1 rules for the cube are the same as standard. So you cannot play a supporter on your first turn. If you have a lot of really good setup supporters, you probably want to go second. Going second generally is better, but that's like an air quotes thing. I feel like more decks want to go second than first, which is why being able to build a deck that goes first is really powerful, because you're picking first, they're picking second. It's kind of like what like fan Rotom decks are doing in standard. And then I didn't really highlight Colorless on the slides, but Colorless just does a bunch of everything. It draws cards, it helps set up. There's a few good attackers in it, so I would encourage you that if you're worried about the consistency of your deck, snap some Colorless cards in there too. There's plenty to go around. Alright, I have some example deck lists from a recent draft we did at the Milwaukee Regional Championships. We had 8 of us in this pod, so not the full like 30-plus person event that we had at NAIC last year, but I think this is a great example of how you can use a colorless line to help you set up your deck. Having a bunch of really good basics, including the Oranguru to get stuff back, and the Munchlax to use on your first turn, alongside the Fan Rotom, which helps you find your stage 1s that both have less than 100 HP. This deck, when I went against it, he had like 4 stage 1s in play on turn 2. It was insane. Anything you want to call out here, Butter?
Yes. Let's talk about the fact that he got Life Stew and Legacy Energy. That's crazy work. All right. Being able to deny prizes like that in the cube is pretty good, and that's why tool removal is good. So, yeah, getting to play multiple ace specs is pretty cool as well. Let's see what else is in here. He's even got the Oranguru for some backup control options. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
we love that.
The reason why, we kind of glazed over it earlier, but the reason that you can run more than one A-Spec in your deck is because there's actually a lot of cards that are better than most of the A-Specs, and so there's a lot of really cool A-Specs they made recently that are just neat designs that were never getting picked because the top 10% of the A-Specs were so good, but there's cards better than a lot of the A-Specs. So it doesn't really make a difference that they're an A-Spec most of the time. They're just powerful cards, and it's really neat to be able to show off more strategies with them. This was my deck from that tournament as well. I went 2-1. I lost to Ryan round 2. And this is an example of one of those dark decks that just does not need energy acceleration. The only acceleration I had was my Galarian Moltres. And then if you count counter energy and twin energy as energy acceleration, those are there too. My idea for this deck is a Lysander's Trump Card deck. Lysander's Trump Card is, in my opinion, the best card in the whole cube, being able to get all of your resources back and make it so you don't really care about how you're using your effects. So being able to Lysander's Trump Card, reuse Dusknoir, reuse Tyranitar, have 2 different discard a card, draw 3s, and then Lipards a discard a card, draw 2. Make it really easy to blitz through your deck. and then I had a couple different ways to get back my trump card if it ever came down to it, like Miracle Headset and the Mewtwo you see in the top right. And then if I ever needed to search for something out of my deck, the Slowking could do it too. I was very happy with this deck. And I think that on a different day, this deck could have easily went 3-0. I beat Ryan in the run back, but we played best of one, so it didn't matter. Anything you want to call out here before we move on to our last example deck list?
X-Attack is the best card in the cube.
I did use X-Attack twice to use Route for 120 when my opponent only had 2 bench Pokemon.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, it was sweet. X-Attack is a card...
120, man.
It's a card...
120 is good.
Yeah. So X-Attack is a card from the trading figure game that we put in because it works completely within the rules of the trading card game. It's just Power Tablet. So plus 30 damage for one of your Pokemon. And it's a fun card that gets a lot of head shakes. And it's just fun to watch people smile and laugh at it. Here is our last example deck from the tournament. Josh's deck, also very good. This is an example of how Grass does not need any other support with it because it does it all on its own. He's got the Roserade to search his deck for any card that he wants, the Grovyle to search for a stage 1, Shiinotic searches for a stage 1, and then some of the better attackers in Grass, including the Tapu Bulu and the Shining Genesect. Anything else here you want to throw out, Butter?
Let me see here.
The blurry card is a...
What is the blurry card?
The blurry card's at Erica's Hospitality, next to the Cynthia's Ambition.
Ah, yes. Okay. Wow, he's got Dowsing Machine and Palpad. He gets to reuse all the cool supporters. He's got Twins and Teammates. You can search anything.
The supporters that were in his scrap pile were like so good that it was embarrassing. Like it was, we were like, what do you mean you're cutting this? But he just had a crazy amount of really good supporters. Wondrous Labyrinth is a funny card. It's the only card that references a specific type in the whole cube because Fairy is not in the cube. But in a deck like this where your acceleration is so good, it is very easy to make it so that your opponent can't attack because all of your energies are getting doubled, but they need an extra energy in their attack cost to be able to do stuff. Dowsing Machine lets you reuse your A-Specs as needed. I saw him heal a Shining Genesect many times by scooping it up and then using Cherim to put all the energies back into play. So this was a very powerful deck as well. Yeah, and then the Rescue Energy allowing him to reuse his attackers meant that going straight back to your hand, you could throw it straight back down on the table. This was another very good deck as well. So thank you guys for your time. This video went a little bit longer than we thought it would, but I hope that if you've never cubed before, or if you cubed our cube a bunch, that you learned something. If you're looking to play the cube, these individuals on the screen have the cube built as well, and you should be able to see us at NAIC for our super large cube event that we should be advertising soon. Just shout out to everyone else on the Cube Council that helps us discuss card releases and all my friends that have donated cards to upgrade the cube. We cannot do this without you, especially now that there is 6 people with the cube. We're hunting for a lot of cards from every set, and all my locals at pre-releases are letting me look through their stuff to get what I need for the cube. So this is definitely a team effort that would not be here without you guys and your interest in it. Any shout outs, Butter, before we wrap up?
Shout out to getting to play anything but standard. We do. I get to cube all the time or host cube events instead of playing standard. It's the best part.
Yeah. In the I was going to say the discard pile. In the description for this video, we will put the link to the Cube Koga where you can see every card in the cube and the changes that we make for each set. We'll also put in the Discord that we use for regionals to ping where we are sitting, trying to find tables, stuff like that. And we'll put our socials down there as well if you're looking to follow us and see what our next event is. Pretty much, if there are 2 or more of us going to any regional, we try to have a draft with as many players as possible on the Sunday of the tournament. And last year, we did have 30 players for 3 different cube drafts at NAIC. We did 5 rounds of Swiss plus top 8. I think this year we'll be able to have 6 rounds of Swiss plus top 8. We'll run it through Limitless, so if you feel like dropping, you don't have to play the whole time. That's totally fine. And it's just going to be a lot of fun to see what does well in that format. I'm really excited.
For sure. Can't wait. It's going to be so much fun running it back in New Orleans again.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for your time. If you guys have any questions about what you've seen here, put it in the comments. I will scroll through periodically to see what we can do. Or if you see us at events or just DM on Twitter or something, I'll probably see it there as well. Thank you guys so much, and peace out.
Bye.